Greetings travellers, this is Nemo060 here with you once again. It's been a while since I've done one of these commentaries, but I have the perfect subject for you. Most of you should know by now that I oppose the pushing for a quote-unquote free market healthcare system, but what you may not know is that my arch enemy politically is the user named LordThaHawkeye. Gotta love the grammar there, by the way. He is your typical libertarian and he cannot seem to think beyond the subject of economics and pretty much blames every case of exploitation by health insurance companies in the US as a result of government intervention rather than, you know, the insurance providers actually trying to save money since it's a for-profit system. The video I am commenting on is response by him to FS80 First, I hope I'm pronouncing this right by the way, who did an excellent and detailed rebuttal on Shane DK's lies about the NHS, the National Health Service of the UK, as well as clearly explaining why complete deregulation is a terrible idea. Now Mr. Hawkeye here did a comment on this video, but essentially pulled out a straw man about FS80 First, I'm getting tongue-tied with this, making vague assertions and comparing the US healthcare system to a free market after watching only 1 minute of the video. The video is 20 minutes long, and after repeating his BS and refusing to watch the rest of the video in the comments, he was subsequently blocked and has now made an video entitled Fail Quote of August. He previously did a fail quote from me in June, playing semantic game on the notion of quote-unquote free to the point of use systems, since he kept screaming about how the NHS is funded through taxes and is therefore not free and immoral. I've already addressed how in a previous video why I suggest that taxes are moral. The NHS is free to the point of use because the funding comes completely independent, completely different source, independent, and so you will never be out of pocket, as in actually spending the money you physically have, although he seems to think because you pay for hospital bills after you get treated in the US, it is free to the point of use. I think you can see what kind of person I'm dealing with here. But anyway, that's enough backstory. Let's get on to the video.
Hello, boys and girls. LordThaHawkeye here again.
Pleased to meet you. Hope you've guessed my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game.
Just when I was thinking I was never going to see another good fail quote again, I got this little one. Now, little backstory here. I got a PM from our good old friend Nightmare060.
Yay! He remembers me.
He's still up to his old tricks again.
Yup, old tricks like arguing that removing regulation will allow private companies to freely exploit their customers and for the consumer to not be able to do anything about it.
And no, he hasn't changed his argument
one bit, he said. Mostly because Mr. Hawkeye here is a broken record and just wants to push the subject of economics, no matter how many times I suggest there are ethical grounds to object to a free market on.
And no, he still hasn't responded to the challenge.
This quote-unquote challenge was to find a source that suggests the formation of the NHS in the UK made medicine a lot cheaper than it was before. I've not been able to find a direct source for this that gives official numbers like he is asking for, which is surprising considering how rigid he wants us to do, evidence he wants to give us, and instead himself provides the Guardian newspaper as a reliable source. But anyway, this is a red herring for several reasons. It completely ignores how taxes work and so are more affordable to the individual at hand. 2. FS80 First, finally said that one go, explained prices for medicine would be higher today because of medical advances and more costly machines and treatments that are more effective than they were in the 1920s. I will link a source below that gives a more detailed explanation of the subject. 3. As I stated before, there are more ethical grounds to promote a more socialised system over a purely capitalist one, i.e. setting a standard of practice to be met, having a regulating body to complain to shut down exploitative companies, having a safety net for the poorest amongst us, and so on and so forth.
Anyways, He blinked me to a video done by a friend, all smug and satisfied that I would be shown up and shown the error of my ways.
Poisoning the well seems to be a favourite of his. Plus, I'd say it was a pretty detailed and accurate rebuttal if he had actually watched the video.
Well, I watched a minute of it and already was seeing the person doesn't know the first thing about how to form a proper argument.
And so he here admits his dishonesty, since what he is arguing against was clearly elaborated on later in the video. How he expects to be taken seriously after watching 1 minute of a 20-minute video just baffles me.
And I was really groaning at the prospect of having to sit through 20 bloody minutes of it trying to hold my food in.
I get the feeling a lot like that when watching your videos. Plus, it seems that Mr. Hawkeye here came in with quite a large foundational bias.
But then something interesting happened. I posted the video at the Bogosity forum in order to share it with all the people there so they could take a look at it and see what we could make of it. And it just so happened that the preview picture of it, you know, the scene of it that you see before you actually play it, happened to be on this quote. Which went as follows. I'm no fan of the corporatist, in parentheses for some reason.
Before I go any further, notice the word, as he pointed out, the word corporatus is in quotes. Had he watched the video, he would have seen that this is a word that Shane DK himself used, that FS81st was responding to. So he's essentially using Mr. Killian's own words. Better be careful not to get in range of friendly fire here, buddy.
As though it's some term we're making up. Sorry.
Once again, he shows his dishonesty here. FS81st never claimed the word was made up. This is an outright lie.
It isn't. You can look at it in the dictionary if you so desire. Anyways.
Glad to know he knows how to use that. Maybe you could use the Urban Dictionary or somewhere to look at the terms quote-unquote free to the point of use and out of pocket, which he so frequently ignores.
I'm no fan of the corporatist system in the United States right now, but one key difference is that the profit mongers who dole out health insurance policies to people are at least kept in check by the government. This safety net is removed in the free market.
Which it is. Regulations give the consumer the power to know what standards are acceptable and who to turn to ensure the doctor is genuine. As FS81st, in rough quote here, said, regulations are there to stop any old quack walking up off the street and calling themselves a doctor to make a quick buck. My dishonesty senses are tingling.
Oh, man. Boys and girls, I have told you about this many, many times. If you're going to argue economics, you must know what corporatism actually means.
And here we go with a total red herring that has completely ignored the point of FS81st was saying, and instead going on a completely unrelated topic that was never even contested by FS81st himself. In fact, this is more of a quote mine than anything else, since it is totally taking what FS81st said out of context.
You don't? You're going to look like an idiot like this little bozo did. What am I talking about?
And you will look like an even bigger idiot if you don't actually address any of the points raised against your arguments and instead make up shit like you're doing now, you little bozo.
Corporatism is when companies lobby governments in order to get favorable laws that benefit them at the expense of others.
And he is perfectly A-OK with this, aren't you, Mr. Hawkeye? It is obviously the government's fault for taking these bribes and lobbyings, and not the health insurance providers who are doing the bribing and lobbying themselves.
So to argue that this is, by doing this, you keep companies in check.
What on earth are you blabbering about? This is why you should watch the video first. Both me and FS81st aren't a fan of the system because of how the private insurance companies are the puppet masters here. We need a government who isn't going to be sided with private corporations like Libertarians are, and so they can enforce regulations and keep these companies in check.
This just retarded. I can't be nice about this.
And neither can I about dishonest little liars like you. Hell, you are worse than a liar dopant in Kamen Rider Double who lies to a terrible singer about his singing quality and hypnotizes the judge to say that he is good, all to gain these little tears of the singer for his collection after he learns the truth. I apologise for the geeky reference here to all those who have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm a nerd. What can I say?
You just went into this and just threw out the word corporatism and didn't even know what it meant.
Repeating yourself does not make it true, Mr. Hawkeye. In fact, from this point on, I shall call you Hagar the Unpleasable. This is much more fitting considering how you will never be provided with satisfactory arguments against your position.
I mean, come on. One trip to dictionary.com should have told you. If you...
We get it! Spin on!
You were still unsure? You could have asked me, you could have asked any of us. We would...
Sure you would.
Have been all too happy to help you out. But no, you had to throw this in here and basically effectively argue that since corporatism is government intervention in the market, you were arguing that government intervention is kept in check by government intervention.
The straw man continues. You don't seem to understand what government intervention is when we're talking about in this context. This is why you should watch the video. We are talking about laws that, again, set a standard of practice to be met and, if done properly, actually give hospitals and doctors inspections so they can be shut down if not up to standard. I made a video about this entitled Consequences of Free Market Healthcare to give a perfect example of regulations that are not being enforced. Now, I'd like to ask you, what is the difference between regulations that are not enforced and no regulations at all? But you want none of that, because you believe that all private businesses are perfect little angels who would never exploit people given the opportunity to do so, without the consequences of their actions. Without consequences for their actions, rather. And don't give me this bullshit about competition preventing that. FS81st, I cannot pronounce this, already clearly pointed out how regulations would enable monopoly. How regulations, or rather, how the lack of regulation, would enable monopolies to happen. But oh wait, you know none of that because you never actually watched the video.
And thus show that you're an idiot who doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, and if that's not enough for you, profit mongers. Oh, people, I have told you this many, many times. If you use the word profit like it's a dirty word, you are a hypocrite.
And so you are suggesting that it's okay to maximize profits when people's lives are at stake? I thought so. Plus there's another point FS81st addressed. You cannot put a price on human lives.
If I have to explain why, then I really wonder how you managed to turn your computer on.
Wow, you went a whole minute without an ad hominem attack. I thought you were being, honest there.
Unbelievable. Oh, and dude, here's a little tip for you. Your politicians, they make profit. Lots of it. Tons of it. Not a truckload. Have you looked...
I'm not even going to say anything about this point since this has already been explained to you what we are talking about with profit. It's unbelievable how you don't get compared to William Lane Craig on a regular basis.
Have you looked at their salaries? The CEO of Walmart could only dream of making profits like that.
Another red herring. Spin on.
So, So I really don't see where you people get off villainizing companies for being profit driven when the people you support are just as profit driven.
No, the politicians and lawmakers are doing this to serve the people and what they think is right. Their intention is not to make money, it is actually to make private companies and make sure they are treating their customers fairly. When I am studying to become a counsellor. Now, this is irrelevant. When I eventually become a counsellor, I am obviously doing the job to make money because I need money. However, my primary intention is to help people. And so my intention is to give advice that works and actually help them instead of giving any old bogus treatment just to turn a quick buck.
And they enjoy monopoly profits rather than having to prove their worth to you like companies do.
And here he blatantly shows his ignorance about how the NHS actually works. Plus he seems to be okay with private monopolies forming, just not the government.
So seriously, get your priorities in check. I really don't know where you people get this from.
Maybe you could watch the video and actually find out. I'm done with the video at this point since there really isn't anything of value to be added in the next 17 seconds. Closing thoughts. It should be apparent by now how utterly dishonest these free market libertarians are. It's funny how they compare anyone who is in favour of the government-run healthcare to being creationists when this little prick Hagar here has used just as many quote mines, strawman arguments and red herrings as William Craig himself does when talking about the Christian God. My advice, stay away from morons like this and go watch FSA's first video on the subject. Then maybe, just maybe, you'll learn what we're actually talking about. This is Nemo60 and I wish you all safe travels.